Going all out, about to start a war now. Second time around, so we doing it in style. It's all elite, not accepting defeat. A lot can change in 1 year, but more can change in 1 week. Believe the hype, the trains leaving tonight. Hit the throttle. We headed straight to Chicago. It's only getting better. This is our future endeavor.
This is Luchasaurus, and that's Jungle Boy. And you need to check out All Elite Podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, to another exciting edition of the All Elite Podcast. AJ, I just realized we didn't go through the trouble of getting you on Skype this week, but, well, nonetheless, we have you sitting in front of 7-Eleven, so it works. How are you doing, though, bud?
Yep. I'm doing good. Nothing too major has happened lately, except for the pay-per-view, which, we could talk about that. So I'm more interested in what's going on with you, because you had a crazy weekend.
Oh, yeah, I had a fantastic time at StarCast 4. I got to do a bunch of media coverage. We got to be a part of the Scrums. We got to do the Eric Bischoff Media Scrum, where we've gotten a little bit of traction from him calling Dave Meltzer a piece of garbage. So shout out to Bischoff for that, because that really did us a favor there, I'd say. But no, it was a great time, dude, just to see everything and be a part of everything. It's hard to really explain it. I made a couple of really good friends throughout the process that I think it was just really helpful to do that. They were able to help me see different things that maybe I wasn't going to do or see or think about, and it helped me out a lot, I think, over time. So that was cool, and it was cool to be able to interview people like Hangman, Janela, a bunch of different people, best friends. Like, I got so many different interviews that we'll get up on our YouTube and probably on the podcast in the coming weeks, because we'll just use that as content for everyone going forward. But it was just a really great time.
That's awesome, man. I'm so glad that you had that opportunity and that you killed it. So I've been super proud of you that you just nailed all that.
Yeah, thanks, man. It was so cool to just be a part of the StarCast, like, little family, like, because everyone in the media team was all really cool and really helpful and receptive and being able to, like, ask questions and things like that. And there was a lot of people who ended up being a part of the actual full Gear Scrum and media for that were there for StarCast that I was able to get pointers from. So I think it was a really good learning experience and really beneficial for everything. So I'm glad that I'll be able to share a lot of that content with everyone who listens or watches the podcast on YouTube.
Me too. I'm excited for it.
And then just being at Full Gear, it was awesome to be there live and be a part of the audience and see how everything is, like, from that perspective, once again being at another AEW pay-per-view. And it was a really great, fun time and a great pay-per-view. If you want to hear our review on that, you can check out our most previous episode that we threw up on Saturday. So we've been just covering a lot of great things with AEW related, right, AJ?
Yeah, we've been on top of it, I think, and we got more to cover.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things that I'd say we have to cover is Kenny Omega's not cleared to compete following that match at Full Gear, which isn't that surprising considering the things that they went through. I guess the one thing I'm more surprised about is that apparently Moxley is able to compete.
Yeah, you're right. That is surprising. That was a crazy match. Those bumps onto the straight wood, that was hard to watch. That was very painful. That I've heard people talking about how crazy that was, and it really didn't dawn on me because I don't know. It just seems like a wrestling ring, but yeah, I guess just hitting that. I don't know if that was it, but if I had to bet on anything that it wasn't that match, it was those really hard bumps.
Yeah, and it was just so crazy. And I mean, I guess we can't confirm for sure that Moxley's good to go, but with them confirming that Omega's not, you would have to assume that that's the idea right now, which is a little bit, like, disappointing, but I guess you can't. I don't know how long Omega will be out. If it's only a week or two, that's not a big deal. Obviously, that kind of match, with that kind of match, like, that's what I would expect is for someone to take that kind of time off. So with an announcement like this, I'm almost wondering, is it going to be a longer time out, do you think?
I don't expect him to see him wrestling on Dynamite for at least a couple weeks. And I don't know. I don't think it's going to be a long, long time because you don't want to keep Omega off TV for too long. And I'm sure he'll be on TV in some capacity, even without wrestling. But you don't want to keep him away for too long. You know, he's such a big star and he's such a drawing power that you really want to get him present as soon as you can.
Yeah, for sure. Omega is one of, if not the guy for AEW. So,
yeah.
But I think it adds to the effect of that match. It really makes it more of an impact for the match. I think something that we were asking for. So him being out 1 or 2 weeks, I think, will be a lot better than, you know, sometimes we see things in WWE where someone will get destroyed on Sunday night and be right back on Monday Night Raw,
I hate that.
competing in matches, not selling anything. So this is the biggest way they could sell it. So I at least appreciate that much, if it's not like a legitimate injury.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I do too. I think that's a smart thing to do. You have a 40-minute, basically a death match, and you're just going to be on Dynamite the next week? No, that doesn't make sense.
Yep, and then they also announced earlier today that they're going to be doing a show in Miami on January 15th. It's cool to see them continue to just like stay consistent with when they're going to announce shows. We basically get a new show announced every week and get a new place announced. And when I saw the Miami thing, I knew, oh, AJ lives right in Florida. Hopefully he'll be able to go to that, so that'll be awesome.
Oh, yeah, and I'm going to make every effort to go to this. And it's an interesting spot because Miami is notoriously kind of bad for crowds anyways. They're usually dead for WWE. Every time I've ever gone to a wrestling show down there, unless it was an indie show, it was just dead quiet. Nobody cared. It was usually all kids. And so I'm really interested in how they're going to pull this. I mean, I expect it to be a very hot crowd like all their crowds have been. And I'm just excited to be a part of that, where it's going to be a hot crowd in Miami, which is something I've never seen on a large scale wrestling show.
Yeah, and it's an interesting little run they're doing there to begin the beginning of the year next year.
Yeah.
But I think I'm right there with you that it should be a hot crowd, but that's going to be like the point in time where we're going to start seeing how things are going.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to start like going to different places across the U.S. By then we'll be about 3 or 4 months into things, and we'll have a real idea of how hot the crowds will stay for AEW. So I think by then it'll be really interesting to see, especially from a live perspective, how the turnout is, how hot the crowd is, because like you said, this is a little bit of a difficult market, you could say, for professional wrestling. So, but they always do their analytics. They seem to have a good idea of where they're going and what they're going to do when they get there as far as ticket sales and things of that nature. So I'm really not too worried about it. They usually have a better plan of where to go than I do. I always just assume, hey, it's going to be cold in January. They want to be where it's hot. That's literally how I look at it.
That makes sense.
So, and that's how they're going throughout the winter. They're going to like Texas and Florida and all of that. So to me, that just seems the simplest, best way to travel anyway. So
Yep.
And then we also got Tony Khan doing media scrums following Full Gear. And during his media scrum, he made a couple of interesting announcements that I'm just going to go over all 3 of them really quickly. He teased the fact that we're going to get another quarterly pay-per-view announcement here in the near future, which is good and interesting because he basically then confirmed that at least Double or Nothing and All Out are going to get a second show in their respective cities. So that was an interesting confirmation. He also addressed the rumors on the issues between Jimmy Havoc and Excalibur and essentially confirmed it, but said that it really wasn't a big deal. Said he had saw bigger things like this in football and things of that nature, so it was interesting to see him have to confirm that. And then he also said that Joey Janela should be good to go by Wednesday. He did address the fact that Joey might have been injured, but they went and checked on him and everything seemed okay by the time that they went to the back and things like that. So what are your thoughts on just these 3 bits of news?
The quarterly pay-per-view announcement kind of bothers me. I understand All Out being in Chicago. That makes sense. But I don't think you should have Double or Nothing be in Vegas. Because if you're only doing 4 pay-per-views a year, then I don't want 2 of those locations to be locked in
and
every
the thing
year.
that was even more interesting, I don't know if you watched it, but he almost hinted to the fact that it might not be called Full Gear, but they could be in Baltimore again next year. And I was like, well, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, you've proven that you can run there, so that's fine, I guess. And it kind of makes those destination cities for your company, but
Sure.
I really don't love Baltimore as one of them. I like Vegas, but I don't really like Vegas because he says it's going to be at the exact same time of the year, which it kind of proved last year. Like, it was cool because the fans were really excited about it, but when it came down to it, like, it was more expensive at that time of year, like, for actual hotels and things like that it was a little bit more difficult for fans. So, I mean, and I might be remembering wrong. I'm not going to say I'm 100% correct on that, but I do remember just, like, it was Memorial Day weekend or whatever, and that was just a little bit more difficult for fans at Double or Nothing as far as, like, travel and, like, having places to stay because Vegas is a lot more popular during that time.
Yeah.
So just because of that reason alone, I think was a reason that I was like, well, maybe not Vegas, but I'm cool with Vegas just because it would be easier for me to travel there for no other reason. But
That's true. Vegas and Chicago they make a lot more sense, but Baltimore, no. I think they should really change locations for Full Gear or whatever it's going to be.
yeah, and that's not to say that Baltimore was an awful city. It wasn't even the total sellout that we got in previous cities. So I think that alone should say that. I mean,
Yeah.
again, if we're talking about the winter months, which is what this time of now at this point, this is what this time of year was. It was really cold, like in Baltimore at points. So I would have almost rather it had been somewhere maybe like Florida if you're going to do the going back home type of thing. Like figure out a way to fit that into the schedule instead. But I would like to have like a confirmation sooner rather than later what our next pay-per-view is going to be and when it will be, just so we can build to something. I would even not mind like another BR Live special that we're just
I
building
wouldn't
to,
either.
because it feels like in wrestling that's something I feel like you have to have is a pay-per-view or an event that you're building to. Otherwise it becomes difficult for fans to want to tune in, especially when you're competing against NXT, which is going to have a hot takeover card to build to.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. They definitely need to be building to something. And I'm going to guess right now they're going to be building to their homecoming show. But it was really awkward because they announced that homecoming show and then they announced the anniversary show. And it was like, okay, I don't know which one to care more about now. But aside from that, I'm thinking that's going to be the one they put focus on, not maybe as a pay-per-view or special, but as a big show or something people need to tune in to watch.
Yeah, and that's fine, but it's still a little different to me.
It
just
is
because
different,
it's
yeah.
not like an anniversary of television. I get the idea behind it, but I don't necessarily love it myself.
I don't either.
It's at least something to build to, but again, I would rather build to even a big like television episode isn't really building to anything to me. You know what I mean?
No, I know exactly what you mean. I'm just thinking from their perspective, if they're doing quarterly pay-per-views, then they're probably going to try to make the TVs a big thing to watch.
If anything, I would like to see something like, I mean, I guess they'll definitely be building to that Chicago show the day before Thanksgiving, which would make sense. So maybe they'll do a show like the weekend before Christmas or something like that. If not saying the day of Christmas, but the weekend before, or something where you can give people something cool and exciting to look forward to at the end of the year. Because it just seems like at this point, what we've announced, we're going to get our next pay-per-view probably in late January.
I would think so, yes.
So who knows? But in other news coming out of media scrums, Hangman Page did a media scrum, and within that, he called out Pac and said that he wanted a rubber match this week on Dynamite, and essentially confirmed that the match was going to happen. It was a little confusing to me because they've obviously had 3 matches already. I guess we're just discrediting the first one because it ended in DQ, which is fine. Like, it makes sense enough, but it's weird that Hangman is the one asking for a rematch when he pretty much won, like, clean, right? Am I remembering wrong?
Pac? He won clean, and he beat Pac on the Indies. So how doesn't he already, like, why is he so upset that he needs another match?
Yeah, I mean, the him not caring about the Indy win because it was a DQ and he got beat down after, so it was almost like 1-1 right there. Because you won, but you lost, but like you still got destroyed afterwards, so it's kind of a wash. And then Pac has the win, but it's not like Pac's win was that much more decisive than Page's. But then again, I will add that people have been saying that Pac helped make Page look a lot better in that match and sort of carried Page in that. Maybe not carried him, but he was the reason that the match looked so great. And it's hard to argue that when Pac is as good as he is. So maybe that's the idea, is that Hangman doesn't think that he really performed the best match and wants to still have a great match while picking up a victory.
It's hard to tell, isn't it? Because Adam Page has been having great matches, but he's always had really great opponents.
Yeah, and that's a good thing for him. But the thing about it is the matches where he doesn't have the best opponents, you can sort of tell that they're just not at the same level. So that's easy to kind of notice. But he is getting a lot better and becoming a lot better working with these really good professionals. So it makes sense. I'm just curious to see like where we go here. Maybe Pac picks up the win and then Hangman is kind of pissed off about it and wants to, like, that's what pushes him to turn. But I feel like having MJF turn, like, you could only do one of them at a time, I would feel like. So
I mean, MJF was kind of already a heel, but I know what you mean. You're absolutely right. It's weird to you're asking a lot of the fans to care and invest the same amount because everybody's going to care more about MJF at this point because that's the reason I want to watch Dynamite so badly right now. The reason I can't wait is I want to hear what MJF has to say. So turning Page sometime soon, I don't know that would be a good idea. I think that would be more of a slow burn thing, like even slower than it has been.
Yeah, and I mean, though, as long as the end game is going to be a Page versus Omega feud, I'm cool with it, especially with Page being the heel. So, I mean, if they do happen to go to that situation sooner than later, have like Hangman lose to Pac and then immediately want to destroy Omega for some odd reason that if they're able to tell a story with it, I would enjoy. But I'm just like super confused. Like I get it, you want a rubber match, but you didn't lose, so
yeah.
I
don't fully understand the idea behind this. I don't understand why he need. Also, it's you're giving us the same match very quickly. We just saw this Saturday. Now we're going to get it again, and we've already seen it a lot. So if this is a rubber match, then shouldn't we build to it a little bit?
And if anything, I would like for it to sort of be the end, like no tag team matches with them or anything again in the future, just because you're kind of billing it that way and creating it that way. So, I mean, again, I'm not mad about the match. The match should be good, but I just am still like confused because Hangman won pretty decisively, if I remember correctly. Like I said, it was like being there live. It's easy to forget everything because you're trying to enjoy it all in the moment. But again, like I don't really remember. Did Hangman lose by some or win by some sketchy way? Or
he had his finish and he won.
Yeah, so that's why I guess I'm confused and feeling like I'm remembering wrong. Just because, like, why are you asking for a rubber match if you won decisively, but then Pac sort of won? I mean, I guess Pac won decisively when he won too, but it's still weird.
It's weird.
But in something that made a little bit more sense from the media scrums, Chris Jericho called out SCU and said that he and Sammy Guevara are deserving of a tag team title match. He called the ranking system a sham, basically, because him and Sammy were nowhere listed on it, despite the fact that they're undefeated as a team. And it's hard to argue that fact. When he brought that up, I was like, well, you're right, and I would like to see him get a tag team title match. And Khan essentially confirmed it later on, and SCU did as well. So that's what we're going to get this week on Dynamite.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool that if you are doing well or if you're undefeated that you will get a title match, at least if you point it out in your Chris Jericho anyways, but I mean, I'm excited. And that's the
one thing that they kind of pointed to as SCU and stuff was like, well, it's Jericho. What do you want us to do? Say no to a match with Jericho? Like, he's the champion. Do you want us to say no to an opportunity of pinning the world champion? Like, so they made it make sense, too. And again, they're undefeated and just sort of got overlooked because they're not a traditional tag team. At least that's what my perspective would be on the matter, but they're literally undefeated. So, I mean, based on that alone, I feel like that makes sense.
And this is an interesting match because, correct me if I'm wrong, Jericho has a perfect record, right?
Yep, Jericho does have a perfect record. I have to imagine that either somehow the Inner Circle win by disqualification, which makes sense because we're doing it on a television stage, so that would be pretty fine by me, I would say. But or they finally take and give Jericho his first loss at the hands of maybe even, I wouldn't be too surprised if Scorpio pins Jericho. Like, I'm assuming Sammy takes the pin, but I wouldn't be shocked if Scorpio pins Jericho.
I'm there with you because I think everybody's expecting, it's going to be a title match. Sammy's going to take the pin, and I feel like they're going to try to shock everybody, and I think that's a good way to do it, too. I don't think that's cheap or anything.
No, and it's a good way to put Scorpio over, especially if they can finish it well. I could also see it being like a roll-up finish again, like, which is fine, but, I mean, there's a lot of roll-up finishes in AEW, which is, again, that's the point, is to make it feel like, oh shit, any roll-up could be the victory, like, and it'll help out a lot in the long run. But right now, it's kind of like, dang, especially like when it's always like, I don't really want to get off track here, but Rio always wins by roll-up, which makes sense because how else do you convincingly make this woman win other than rolling someone up and getting like a surprise victory? But it just does like add to it a lot when you have one character who wins by roll up a lot and then you're trying to get roll ups over as well, you know?
Yeah, I do. But one quick thing, because I want to stay on this for a little bit. Do you think there's any chance they win?
Jericho and Sammy?
Yeah.
No, not in like a no DQ, like they actually pin and win the titles. Nah. And I would rather that, like, I don't want to see the tag team titles change hands that quickly. I know that Jericho's popular, and it could help Sammy out a little bit, I guess, giving him a title, but it wouldn't help the tag team division at all.
It would be weird.
I get it, because then you could sort of not have to focus on someone challenging Jericho as the world champion right now, because there's not necessarily a number one contender, but I just wouldn't like it. I don't think that it would help the tag team division right now. I think a better thing that would help the tag team division is to have Scorpio pick up the pin on Jericho and elevate Scorpio, elevate that tag team as damn, they're good as hell. They're the first ones to pin our world champion, something like that to really elevate those two, you know?
Yeah, and I think you're right, and I'm hoping you're right, because imagine if they lose. You have them win the titles with the roll-up, then you have them go into a match, not even a week and a half later, and for the titles, where you could have had the Lucha Brothers or Private Party go and win the titles, and then on Dynamite, the following show, lose to Jericho and Sammy G.
Yeah,
that would be terrible.
Yeah, I would not love it. I don't think, again, I don't think that it helps much. I don't think that Sammy really needs to be a tag team champion, especially with someone like Jericho. I like that, the dynamic that we're at right now, but pushing it much further is it just doesn't help anything. It doesn't help the tag team division at all, and that's my biggest thing. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that. But speaking of the tag team division and rankings, let's go ahead and go over all of the rankings, and we'll go ahead and start with the tag team division. I'll run through the top 5, and then we'll just sort of discuss it and our feelings on it. Obviously, this was before full gear, so the rankings are likely to change, but I do want to get both of our opinions on these rankings, what we think might change, what we think could be different, and how we just think of it overall. So for the tag team division, number 1, we've got the Lucha Brothers, followed by Private Party. The Young Bucks come in at number 3, the Dark Order at 4, and the Best Friends at 5. The Young Bucks lost. Basically, everyone in the top 3 lost at Full Gear, so that could shake things up quite a bit for this division. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah. On the tag teams, I really want to see the Hybrid 2 rise up these rankings, and I want to see the Dark Order, and not to shit on the Best Friends, but I don't want to see the Best Friends at the top team, because I feel like they're really not meant to be, and I would be fine with the Best Friends winning the titles or something down the line, but
it's just
right
too early
now,
for that. Yeah,
you have to build to that, because they're going to be seen as comedy. So, and that's fine. You can make comedy and do serious, but you have to build to that. And I really think the Hybrid 2 have been so good, and they're the teams that and LAX obviously are Proud and Powerful, obviously will be rising on these rankings, and they will be shooting up, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I would almost not be surprised if they pick up another victory or two, and then they release another set of rankings, or even if they were to release rankings right now, I wouldn't be surprised to see them even maybe at number 1, because they are an undefeated team, sitting at 2-0 with a win over the Bucks. You sort of slide the rest of the teams all down and remove the Best Friends from the top 5, and I think you still have a decent top 5. Looking at this top 5 and the overall records of everyone on here, I understand Jericho's issue with not being on here. With the Best Friends on here at 2-3 with a 3-5 overall record, it's difficult, I think, to be at 2-0 and say I'm not on your rankings. So it makes a lot of sense that he's getting a tag team title shot. They're one of the only 2 undefeated teams, I think. No, Hangman and Omega lost to Sammy and Jericho, right?
Yeah,
so they've even got a win over a pretty established team in those 2. So I think that it would make sense for almost those 2 to be at number 1 right now, and then Proud and Powerful to be at number 2. And so anyone arguing about Jericho and them being put in that match just because they weren't on the rankings, I feel like they're foolish.
I agree. It doesn't make any sense to be upset about that, because everything is telling you that this is how it works here.
Yeah, so I think that Proud and Powerful will be probably the top team, the next team to challenge for the tag team championships after Jericho and Sammy G. And then after that, I think that it'll be a bit of a shakeup. Again, like I said, the Lucha Brothers and Private Party both losing on this previous show. I could see Private Party slipping quite a bit now, losing another match or 2, going down near the bottom, and maybe seeing a team like the Hybrid 2 rise up. I wouldn't mind seeing an introduction of another 1 or 2 tag teams in AEW as well.
Yeah, we really do need a few more, and like not maybe when I say a few, I don't mean give us like 10 tag team. I just want like a couple
Yeah,
more.
maybe like two, and maybe one established one and one kind of surprise one that we've never really heard of, or just pair two guys together that we aren't really used to seeing as a team.
Yeah,
I wouldn't mind, figure it out. They've got enough people that they're not necessarily using 100%. Because we're doing a lot of these tag team matches again with Omega and Paige, or like Jericho and Sammy, where they're not a traditional team, so it's kind of weird to see them on these rankings, or they're kind of getting overlooked for these rankings because they're not a traditional team. So again, I just want a little bit more for the tag team division, because looking like almost our rankings are almost every team, it feels like.
yeah. It's a bummer that because I was gonna say Jurassic Express are not on here, but that makes sense because obviously Luchasaurus is gone.
And I don't think they've even won anything as a team.
No, they haven't. I don't think so. And
They are a team
they've
who
lost a lot of heat.
They're a team I could see skyrocketing up these rankings, though. They pick up quite a few victories whenever Luchasaurus comes back. He mentioned in his StarCast media scrum that we could see him at the latest by January, but hopefully sooner. I just want to see him heal up 100% and come back. So whatever they do, I think once he comes back, they'll be killing it. But I think prior to that, it could be a little bit like shaky,
Yeah, and I think it's gonna stay that way until he comes back. Yeah.
But I think overall the rankings and everything for the top 5 of the tag team division aren't bad. I think that overlooking the tag teams like Jericho and Sammy was a little bit of a misstep there. But otherwise, I think they did all right.
Yeah, I think so.
And I'm curious to see how much or how often they update these rankings. I don't necessarily think anyone asked that during any of the scrums.
Yeah,
I would have liked to find that out.
I'd like it to be like a monthly thing, but I don't know.
Yeah, every once a month would be perfectly fine by me. Or even if like they do something on their website where it's like a speculative thing every week, where someone's making a column, or there's a couple of people doing a column. Even like someone like maybe Jerry Lynn, or someone who's an older wrestler who has a knack for writing, you know what I mean? Who could take over that type of position on their official website, have a reason to draw people to their website and get like their thoughts on it, and then at the end of the month we get like an official rankings. I think that would be pretty interesting or cool. But regardless, it is nice to see a ranking system.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's go ahead and go over the women's ranking. Again, this was before Full Gear, so the rankings will definitely change. But number 1, we have Emi Sakura, Britt Baker in at number 2, Hikaru Shida in at number 3, Allie in at 4, and Nyla Rose in at 5. Britt Baker picks up a victory at the pay-per-view, so you have to assume that she's going to rise up a bit. I'm not sure if this match included Nyla Rose's match from Dark that aired, I think, the same exact night that these rankings came out, so I'm pretty sure it wasn't included, so I would have to assume Nyla would rise up a bit, as well as Hikaru Shida. But again, I'm not positive if these were included, so...
I'm not either, but it surprised me that Hikaru Shida was that high up, because she's been very good, but I didn't realize that she was winning this much, and she is. And I'm expecting Britt Baker to enter into the title picture sometime soon, because I don't know, it seems natural, doesn't it?
I guess because she's won so much, and that's essentially the path that we're going here. So,
and who else does Rio really have?
Yeah, outside of maybe Hikaru Shida, or if you make a strong enough, like if Nyla Rose were to somehow pick up an upset victory over Britt Baker, and it would almost sort of be like like the underdog victory or the big upset in college football type thing. I think that would be enough to push like maybe Nyla Rose into title contention. But outside of that, I think you're right. But the thing that I think will help with a top 5 is I think, in my opinion at least, you can basically do a number 1 contenders match with any combination of the top 5, and I would basically be okay with it. Unless you're doing like number 4 against number 5 for a number 1 contenders match, I think you could do like 2 against 4 or 3 against 5, because you're fluctuating throughout the division, and you're like giving someone an opportunity to rise up while also pushing someone else down. So I think that they could do something like that as well, of just putting any combination again of the women. But I would have to assume Britt Baker rises up to number 1 with Emi Sakura finally taking a loss in singles competition.
Yeah, and I'm wondering how Kong is going to fit in, because she's obviously not wrestling a lot, or not wrestling regularly. So, but she's going to be a big deal because she's doing this thing where she's cutting off hair. Maybe she's going to start wrestling more now. I don't know. but I'm expecting her to kind of have a meteoric rise, very, very quick shoot up. Or if not, they're going to have to figure something out because the rankings just don't add up for her to be in the title picture right now.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. But overall, I think, again, the women's rankings are good. And the thing that I like about the women's a little bit more than the tag team division is I feel like there's a lot more to move up and down in here. They just signed Big Swole. There's been a big push for them to sign Shaza McKenzie, another person that I did an interview with at StarCast who was just a phenomenal person who I'd love to see signed by the company. And they've also just signed a couple other women who, that we didn't really know. Jamie Hayter, someone that they've talked about a lot and used. Shauna, someone that they've used a lot more recently. She's not the best wrestler or everyone's favorite, but the librarian, there's plenty of other women in the women's division that they can work with and bring in and push up or push down. Like, again, Awesome Kong, another one, like you said. So it's just nice to see within the women's we have a lot more variety than the tag teams where I'd like to see like 2 or 3 more that you could be like, oh, they could really like rise up the rankings. So. And then lastly, we'll go over the men's division. Once again, just to preface this, this is before Full Gear, but going into Full Gear, they had Cody Rhodes at number 1, Pac at number 2, Hangman Adam Page at number 3, Kenny Omega at number 4, and Jon Moxley at number 5. I think the one that stands out to me the most is Moxley, just because his record is like not the best. His overall record is 1-1-1. So it's nothing to really nothing to write home about, nothing to care too much about. So,
yeah, the one that stood out to me was Pac, because I was like, wow, he really needed to lose to Page, huh? Because he's winning so much.
Yeah, in that sense, I 100% agree with you there. That's why I would guess he lost.
Yeah.
But that's the weird thing about that match between the two is it almost should at this point be a number 1 contenders match because you would just assume that they would have switched places and then Cody would drop almost like Cody should. I mean, I don't know if you even keep ranking him because he's not going to challenge for the championship. Like what Tony Khan said is it doesn't seem to be what everyone's expecting where this gives Cody an option to challenge down the line. Now, I think that's bullshit if you ask me.
No, it's total bullshit.
And I think but that's how it should be. He shouldn't be going like, yeah, you know what? It does open the door for that down line. Like, no, he led into it which made sense. But in my opinion, that at this rate, Cody should just be removed from it entirely. Where again, everyone it would, in my opinion, be Page, Pac, Moxley, and then whoever. I think Omega, the thing. I guess. Well, you don't really change Omega and Moxley then because it doesn't count. So
yeah, and you're right. It's weird to see Moxley on the rankings, really.
Yeah, and that's where it's weird, but good. Like I appreciate the whole rankings thing, but Moxley's one that I would have been okay with being like a snub, or people could have been like, "What the hell? Yeah. Why wasn't Moxley on?" But put someone else on who had maybe accumulated a couple more wins recently. Even Darby Allin at number 5 would have been super fine by me.
And it makes sense because then you keep this rolling of Moxley being against the anti-establishment, and he's fighting against Tony Khan. So I would have liked that, but whatever.
Yeah, and I'm not against him being on it, but it's just weird with him being on it, and then it's weird to coming out of Full Gear again. I would pull Cody out. Hangman would go above Pac, so it would be Hangman 1, Pac 2. Omega would be at 3 despite just losing a gruesome match, and Moxley at 4 despite just winning a gruesome match, because again, the match doesn't apply to their rankings. Now they do say that in some cases match quality affects rankings, but if it's an unsanctioned match, does the match quality at all affect their rankings? I would say no. So
yeah, I don't think so.
So then it's cool, but it's weird, I guess, is my biggest thing.
Is weird.
We're going, because if I'm taking it seriously, which I would like to do, especially for terms of the podcast and the discussion, Omega has to stay above Moxley at number 3 despite getting his ass kicked by Moxley, and Moxley would then be at 4. Well, I mean, Moxley, they just need to give Moxley a singles match now or something, an opportunity to go above Omega. At least at this point, because that's the one thing Moxley has going for him is he technically hasn't been beaten in singles competition. He does have that draw with Pac, but neither man had been beaten going into Full Gear. Now Pac has finally suffered a loss, but Moxley still hasn't really suffered an official loss as a singles competition. So Yeah, and I would like to have seen, again, like someone like Darby, or, I mean, he's the one who sticks out the most as far as a singles competitor that they've pushed since the beginning of the show.
Yeah,
And maybe
I
even
think Darby
MJF, because
definitely
MJF
belongs on
he's only 1-0. Like,
That's true, but it was Brandon Cutler, right?
you're right. You got me, dude.
But no, you're right. Darby Allin definitely belongs on here right now. Or before Full Gear, and definitely after, if there was anybody to put it on here. And I'm thinking Omega and Moxley aren't done. They're going to have a match where it's going to actually count, because I would hope so anyways, because it seems odd to just leave it at an unsanctioned match where nobody really gets a win.
Yeah, and that's what confused me about a lot of people on social media being like, well, I think that if you're going to do a hardcore match, it should be the end of a feud. Well, if the match isn't going to count because it's going to be that hardcore, how can it be the end of a feud? So you have to have that first, and then a regular match where they'll be able to finally sanction it, and it'll be a legit match, and it'll be whatever, and Omega will probably actually win that one, and it'll be bullshit because Moxley will have won, but it'll never count.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's where they're going, and I'm excited to see that. By the way, I'm not even upset that it seems obvious.
I'm not upset either, but I'm upset from a storyline perspective, like as a mark. Like, Moxley deserves his comeuppance, and it's bullshit
Gotcha.
that he's not.
Yes.
His wins don't count. This is BS. But
Yeah,
that's the
absolutely
story,
is.
and that's the idea. So it'll be cool to see. And it should be a good story for Moxley going forward. So I just want to see someone fresh hop into this. I want to see a Sammy G or Joey Janela, or definitely not Sean Spears. But I mean, I guess if he's someone who hops in, he would make sense. Again, coming off of a singles victory.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think about people who have recent singles wins, and he is one who
I think it's
stands
Sean
out.
Spears, now that you mention it, because I think he won on Dark, and now he beat Joey.
Yeah, so that would make sense. I think there was another match on Dark. I can't remember exactly all of the matches from Friday because I was pretty busy. But did you watch Dark?
I watched all of it except the main event, but I know who wins it.
What was the main event?
It was SCU and SEMA versus the Hybrid 2 and Kip Sabian.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, I mean, Kip is one who I could see maybe make his way up these rankings with a decent feud with Janela and going over Janela. If they see maybe a bigger future for Kip in the beginning, because Janela is someone you can utilize in the long run and really elevate at just about any point, as long as you don't bury him in a huge way, I would say. So pushing Kip first would make sense to me, just because he's newer to fans and fresher, and this is a good feud for him, a good fresh opening feud. He's someone I would like to see maybe make his way up these rankings, and maybe even randomly get a championship match down the line because he won a couple of matches in a row. That's what I like about the rankings, is that right now it was a good set of rankings. Because again, that's the thing that I can think of, is there's no one who sticks out from a single spot who should have been on here over Moxley, except probably Spears.
Yep. Yeah, I think you're right.
Which is good. That's good.
It
ranking.
is good. They're solid, and it makes sense, and I'm not upset about it. I'm not going, this is total bullshit, or this doesn't make sense.
I feel like the argument could be made for Darby too, like I said a couple of times, but outside of him and Spears, I think they're the only two you could really have made a big argument that should have been in there in place of Moxley.
Yeah, and overall, I like these rankings because you remember the WWE Power Rankings that were just total
I think they
bullshit?
still do that shit, but I'm not sure.
It was
website,
always.
yeah.
I remember being a kid and going on WWE.com and being like, the Power Rankings, and then it just didn't matter, and it always bugged me as a
it
kid.
it didn't mean anything. Yeah. So this is cool to see that these mean something. Your number one was the number one contender in every case, so that was cool. And it's cool to see how things should be affected by things, and how much different things can be on the next set of rankings, where people will fall off and where they'll go. So I thought that's why I felt like we had to spend quite a bit of time just discussing each division and our thoughts on each division.
Yeah, and I agree. I think it's important for our podcast, especially on episodes like this.
Yeah. And normally we would cover the entire card that we have announced for Dynamite, but we already went over the two matches that were call-outs from the scrums. I haven't seen any other announced matches confirmed. I do think that, just speculating, we might see Wardlow finally make his debut, because they did tweet out that he had made that he had signed with AEW. It is also interesting to note that there will not be an episode of Dark this Tuesday, because they aired it on Friday, which I really liked. I liked it being aired on Friday, but I would just at this point rather them all be aired on Friday then. That's just my like personal opinion, and I know that's not how it'll be, but if that's how it's going to be before every pay-per-view, and we're not going to tape any Dark matches at the pay-per-view, then like that leaves me hanging on Tuesday, and that's not like people are like habitual. You know what I mean? You're used to your habits, and if all of a
That's
sudden,
what I'm saying. I missed the main event because of that reason. I got all fucked up.
yeah. So I'm gonna be looking forward to it on Tuesday, and then it's not gonna be there, and it's fine because we already got it on Friday. But it does like just sort of change everything up. And again, I get why you did it. It wouldn't have made so much sense on this Tuesday. It made way more sense putting it on Friday, but there are just reasons that I would rather them always be on Friday then.
Yeah.
So, but still not bad. But before we wrap everything up, let's go ahead and cover Being the Elite. AJ, your Being the Elite recap.
Being the Elite this week, it was pretty quick, and we started off with a segment where the Bucks and Cody and SCU and Brandon Cutler, they're all throwing shirts out into the ring, and they see a kid, and he has a sign that it's his birthday, so they bring him in, and they say, Brandon, you have the worst record, so you're going to take the pin, and then they have Brandon Cutler take the pin to the kid, which was funny and nice, and the kid pinned him really awkwardly, but I won't judge him. And then we got the intro, then the segment. The Bucks are at the airport. This was okay. I
watched this one on Twitter, and yeah, this one was a bit much even for them.
It was them poking fun at the Saudi Arabia thing.
And we'll just say that much, dude, because if not, we're gonna sound like we always complain about AEW and Being the Elite. So we'll just say that much, because if not, I'm gonna complain about it for 10 minutes. So.
Yeah. You're right. Okay, so it was just them poking fun at Saudi Arabia, the situation, and then.
And if you can't see why that's a bit ridiculous and too much, then that's fine. That's you. But I think it's a bit ridiculous and too much, so we're just not going to touch on it. So.
Yeah. Then Scorpio Sky returns to the ring. This one was my favorite segment, and it was the most awkward thing I've ever seen on Being the Elite. Scorpio Sky comes back. Did you see it? He comes back to the ring. He's like, I got a huge pop. Did you see my huge pop? And Matt Jackson then appears with a giant ring pop on, gigantic ring pop, and he just puts it to his face. They don't say anything, and Sky just looks really nervous, and he starts licking the ring pop for like an uncomfortably amount, like a long time,
like they always do.
And it was really funny. I don't know how to describe it, but it was really it popped me for some reason. But anyways,
ring popped me. Then we got Justin Roberts practicing John Moxley. He's doing Gian, and then it turns into Nakazawa, and then we go to Nakazawa at the production desk going Nakazawa, everybody's favorite. Then we got fan cam footage of the big brawl at the end of Dynamite, Nick Jackson jumping off the stage, and then we cut from there to Matt doing a normal vlog. He was just at the airport doing a normal vlog. He was just talking about what happened at the end of Dynamite, the upcoming StarCast events, going to Baltimore, how there's going to be 25 guys on going to Baltimore in one plane. Which I'm sure was not as crazy or exciting as those 90s WWF. That would still be wicked fun to be on, though. Like a group of just 25 of everybody chilling together on the same plane. Like, that would be sick.
In the post 9/11 world, though, I can't imagine wrestler flights are as fun.
Well, I guess.
Nobody's getting drunk and popping.
Yeah, you could still get drunk on a plane.
That's true. You're right. Then Rick Knox is having a crisis. He's kind of being existential, just venting to Orange Cassidy. He's saying, no matter what I do, people are upset. And he asks if people are getting upset about this whole referee thing. And Cass chimes in, or he asks if people are sick of this referee thing. And Cass says, do you? Do you think that? And then Cassidy says nothing for a really long time. Then he just goes, yeah. And Kaz replies, me too. And they just both walk away and they leave Rick Knox alone, sad. Then after that, you know what? I want to talk about that one really quick. I get it, referee, haha. Can we stop though? because we are sick of it. Like, I'm sick of it, and I know that was the joke here, but I'm hoping that it actually closes it up, that we're not going to be making these referee jokes over and over again.
It wouldn't be so bad if we literally didn't have referee problems still every week. Like,
I know.
We complained about our boy Bryce on the last episode, but like, still, come on, man. Like, you can't. I get that you're referencing it. I mean, I guess trying to address it, even like saying, "Yeah, we get it. Sorry." Or whatever, but it's just a bit too much for me. That's all.
Yeah, and I'm glad that they are addressing it and that they are working on it, and they're trying to tell us, hey,
really
we're
working on it.
Well, you know what I mean. They're
They did
trying.
it again.
It's still early.
They're doing it on purpose at this rate.
They are, but you know what I mean. I'm hoping that they actually are taking it to heart and actually working on the kinks and getting it out.
I'm sure.
But Kenny Omega then goes to the Rock and Roll Express, who are the Young Bucks. I'll explain in a second. They go to get a spray tan, and they come back in the room, and it's the actual Young Bucks.
Oh.
But that's the whole thing. He was trying to tell the Rock and Roll Express, you guys have to bring out the big gimmick at the end. You got to bring out the spider web of barbed wire. And they're like, we got to go do our spray tan. So they go, they do that, and then the Young Bucks have appeared, and he's like, you guys are so much thinner. You're lean. You're mean. Then right after that, we got fan cam footage of the Young Bucks making their entrance at Full Gear. And after we see that, because they don't do clips of matches this time for obvious reasons, we get Adam Page coming to the back to the Young Bucks, and he's apologizing for his recent behavior, but he's doing it in this really quick, nonchalant way where he's saying, I beat Pac tonight, now I'm okay, and I was just having trouble and blah blah blah. But then he's like, are you guys good? And then Nick is like, my leg is hurt, and he's just like, yeah, that's good. And then he just like leaves. And so they're still teasing this. It's just a little different.
It's interesting because it just seems like he's got something on his mind still, so maybe that's why they're pushing. Because that's how he sort of acted during the press conference when he demanded the match with Pac again. So
he did.
And in terms of that, it's interesting. But otherwise, I mean, I'm just curious to see where it goes. I'm ready for something new with him anyway, so that's fine.
I'm hoping that they start.
Hangman, though, dude.
I do too. And I'm really hoping that they start planting these seeds of his heel turn on TV, and that's what's going to be happening on Dynamite going forward. That they're not going to turn him heel, but that they're going to start showing you, hey, he might be turning heel. And like they're going to start showing that to the whole audience, not just to being the Elite fans.
Yeah.
And then after that, we get the last segment, which was the Young Bucks and Adam Page are watching Kenny versus Box, and they're worried, and they're talking about the barbed wire spider web, and they're saying, I don't want to bring it out, and they're like saying, I'm not going to do it. And then we smash cut to them bringing it out and him going through the barbed wire. Which
cool.
was good.
That's a nice little like segment, and that's the thing. Like being the Elite seems like it's been getting a lot better because a lot of the segments we didn't used to love or seem to have disappeared or are not as prominent anymore. There are still a couple of like the referee ones once in a while, or the librarian or whatever. And for some people, they like that. So it's not always going to be for us for the entire episode from start to finish. But it sounds like they've been like keeping it like borderline between being something you don't have to watch, but if you watch it, you're going to get like a little addition to the story and be able to see like, oh, this is like, especially that part with them bringing the webbing out and how cool that is. And like you saw it from one perspective at the show and then from another perspective on being the Elite. So in that sense, I really like being the Elite, and that's something I really appreciate them doing, especially after pay-per-views and stuff like that. So it's really cool that they did that.
Yeah, I agree. I like this. I like the little hints. I like these finding this Easter egg, kind of the Easter egg hunt thing they have going on. I hope they keep it up, and I hope it actually kind of
pays
matters.
Off to something. Yeah, that would be the best part. If it does like mean something and it's not just like some little teaser thing to make you keep watching every week, but then on TV it means absolutely nothing. Like I hope that it is leading up to something. At the very least, but still. And
I know if it does pay off, a lot of people are going to be upset going, I didn't see it. And it's like, well, it's okay. You
didn't have to.
But,
yeah, you could have.
Yeah.
So.
But you don't have to watch it. Nobody's making you, and nobody isn't making you.
And I guess that's the key thing where if they don't pay off with it, it's not that big of a deal because, like I said, like you said, there's not a ton of people that are watching Being the Elite in comparison to the entire like show itself. But if you're watching it, it would be nice that you being dedicated enough to watch it is going to pay off in some way.
Yeah.
But that's great. We got another Being the Elite recap in. I just want to thank everyone for tuning in. Sorry that we're coming in at a bit of a different time. I actually just got back from Baltimore. Just drove in this morning. Had to work right after that. Figured might as well get the podcast done right after work, so that way I can at least relax a little bit. But it was a great weekend, a great time. AJ, go ahead and plug your social media.
Well, you deserve the relaxation, and you can follow me at Big Match AJ on Twitter, and you can follow me on Instagram at AJ the Fitzy.
And as always, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at All Elite Podcast. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. If you're watching right now on YouTube, make sure you smash that subscribe button, brother. But you can catch us on YouTube.com/All Elite Podcast, Facebook.com/All Elite Pod, Instagram at All Elite Everything. We also have our website, AllEliteEverything.com, where we will upload all of our interviews, all kinds of exclusive stuff from StarCast to there. Tomorrow when I'm done relaxing tonight, because I will actually have to probably edit a lot of my interviews and stuff tonight after I'm done relaxing for a little bit. So there is still a little bit of work left to be done, but nonetheless, thank you everyone for tuning in once again. Thank you for all of the support while I was at StarCast and everything coming out of that, all of the retweets and shares and interviews from anyone that I got, and all the support from anyone there within the media. Everything was all super cool. So thanks for that. And until next time, see ya.
Bye!